about leaving a legacy, which is relevant for all of you as chapter officers as you go to the end of your term, as new terms may begin for some of you, and as you find new people to be your successors afterwards. It's a pretty exciting time, and one that comes with a lot of questions of what comes next and how do you leave it on the best note that you possibly can. And Tim, feel free to end the screen share there as well, and we'll get to the man of the hour. To learn from tonight, we have with us our grand president, Billy Maddalon. So Billy is a 1990 graduate of our North Carolina Beta chapter at NC State, where through a great SIGEP experience in college, he took that on to be a regional director of the SIGEP's headquarters staff. After working for the staff, he got his MBA from Duke University and went on to be a speechwriter and a staff assistant and work in the North Carolina State Legislature for a number of years. After serving in the legislature, Billy started his own business and is now the managing owner of Unique Southern Estates in the hospitality industry, and has been highly awarded for the work that he does and is well regarded, especially in the government space for the type of person he is and how he goes about what he does. In the SIGEP world, Billy's been a volunteer. He's been a district governor. He's served on your national board and now serves you as your grand national president. And more than all the accolades, I think the most important things about Billy, if you know Billy, he's somebody that has a legacy and a growing legacy of having a huge heart, of really, really caring about people, and putting those around him first. And we're incredibly thankful and incredibly excited to spend some time with him here this evening. So Billy, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. It looks like we've got some folks on tonight that were on last night. So I apologize if I say a lot of the same stuff because I wasn't prepared to say anything different. So I'll try to spice it up a little bit. Anyway, that was a very generous introduction. Thank you, Sean. And so tonight we're talking about leaving a legacy. Most of you are probably at a point where you're transitioning or getting ready to transition out of a leadership position with SIGEP, perhaps in other areas of your life, and moving on to something different. And so tonight we're talking about the fact that momentum really matters, and we're talking about how important it is to finish strong. First of all, I think of momentum in the sense of physics. P equals mv. So momentum equals mass times velocity, the product of mass times velocity. And in the context of human behavior, momentum then sort of becomes a metaphor, or mass becomes a metaphor for the size of whatever initiative, the size of whatever you're doing. And then, of course, velocity becomes the speed, or in this case, I think the frequency with which you do it. So what I will tell you is that in my experience in life, none of us are in a position to lead for long enough to really change the world. We can change things incrementally in small ways. We can move things forward. We can move the needle. We can have what I like to call small wins. I'm a big believer in small wins, in creating momentum, getting the wind at your back, getting people on your team, starting off trying to figure out how to incrementally achieve the desired results. And sometimes that includes, well, it always includes bringing people on board, building a solid team of folks. So the mass doesn't have to be big when it comes to accomplishing things as a leader. It has to be frequent. You have to achieve results frequently. So for me, people always say, well, what's your personal brand? I think any of you that are looking to develop a personal brand, hopefully your personal brand has something to do with results. Particularly in today's world, there's so much crap out there, so much noise, so much phony this, so much fake that. People love people who are committed to doing their jobs well, and just producing results. And I'm often remembered, as I said last night, I'm often reminded that, you know, I'm a big baseball fan. And so in baseball, if you hit the ball 3 times out of 10, you know, you're batting 300. And if you can finish your career batting 300, you're probably Hall of Fame material, which means, of course, you strike out 7 out of 10 times, or you or you ground out 7 out of 10 times. Michael Jordan likes to tell everybody that he has missed more shots than anyone in NBA history, and that's true. And yet he's considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest player in NBA history. And so it's not always about how many you sink. It's about getting in the game, swinging the bat, taking small risks, getting small wins behind your back, and creating the momentum that you need in order to carry you through to the end of whatever your term is. Now, if you're like me, at the end of any process, it's easy to get a little bit tired, to start to look over the next task, to look beyond it, and to start thinking about what's next instead of continuing to do your job. So I want to talk to you a little bit about finishing strong. It goes without saying that all of us human beings, we have a tendency to start races really, really fast. We get elected to something, we get selected to something, and the first thing that we want to do is save the world. The first thing we want to do is charge the windmill, and that's great. It's hard to keep that pace up over the course of a year or two, or however long that you have the privilege of leading. And I will tell you that how you finish the race is more important than how you start. Ask anybody that's an athlete. You can make mistakes early in a game. You can fall down and trip early in a race and still get up and finish strong and win the race. It's harder to do at the end of the race. It's harder to make the mistakes at the end of the game or fall at the end of the game, because there's not as much runway. There's not as much time to correct for it, or to make up for it, or to problem solve for it. So so in my mind, people talk a lot about getting tired and getting burned out. Last night we talked about what burnout looks like and why do I think people burn out. And what I said was, I don't know that I really believe in burnout as much as I think sometimes we forget about why we started doing this in the first place. It's easy to get disconnected from your source. It's easy to get disconnected from the why, the rationale, the motivation, the things that got you to do this in the first place. As long as we remember why this is important, why it mattered to us the day we were sworn in or the day we took the position, then we'll finish as strong, if not stronger than we started. And that is truly a textbook brand for a leader, is to be able to say, when they left office, they had a head of steam, they were working as hard and achieving as much, and they're as engaged as they were the day they stepped into the position with that same kind of energy level. So for me, finishing strong, and it's something that I use with my kids all the time. It's easy to just get a little bit lazy on yourself. Don't let yourself do that. Finish pretty strong. So I'll also let you know that for me, just as someone who's been involved in building a business and in operating a business, and somebody that's been involved in politics, I think it's super important that you prepare your successor. That is the mark of a gentleman. It's also the mark of a professional. I said last night, and I'll say it again, it's your job. It's your job to make sure that your successor is prepared to hit the ground running, and that's prepared to be successful. And in a very real way, a lot of your legacy is going to be dependent upon how well your successor does. So there's probably, if you want to think about it that way, there's probably a selfish motivation for why you should want to make sure that your successor is prepared. It's because they will likely pick up where you left off, carry the baton, if you will, through the rest of the race, because you're not going to be able to finish everything that you started. And indeed, a lot of what you achieved during your tenure has probably been building upon what your predecessor started and probably their predecessor before them. So it's a cumulative effect of everybody sort of taking the baton, moving the needle on, continuing to move the chapter in this case, perhaps it's the business or the nonprofit forward. I'll tell you a story about me in politics. So I was in the North Carolina legislature and I made the decision to leave and go home. I had a family and couldn't really commit to being in Raleigh full time. It happened to be during a redistricting year when the legislature was going to be changing the districts. And since I had announced I wasn't going to be running for re-election, the legislature made the choice to change my district radically because there wasn't an incumbent that was depending on sort of having their seat protected. What it did was change the district so much that me as a Democrat was retiring, and then my district ended up electing a Republican. And, you know, sometimes in politics, well, not sometimes, most of the time in politics, it's shirts and skins, right? So everybody has a tendency to be tribal. And a lot of people in what was my old district were really disappointed that a Republican won. And so I reached out and contacted my successor in admittedly a different district, but still a big part of my old district, and said, let's you and I spend time together. I want to help you be successful. I want to introduce you to some people. I want to talk to you about some of the things that I've been working on in the district. I want to introduce you to some of the decision makers in the communities and the neighborhoods that you're going to represent, let you know a little bit about what's on their plate, et cetera, so that you can be successful representing these people in the North Carolina legislature. And I had more people tell me, well, you're crazy as hell. You know, why would a Democrat help a Republican be successful? That's not what we do. We want Republicans to fail. And my response was, because it's my job. My job was to make sure that my successor was as successful, if not more so than me, regardless of what party they're from, because I went to the legislature to represent people and to help make people's lives get better. And presumably my successor was going to the legislature to do exactly the same thing, maybe in a different way, maybe different priorities, maybe a different worldview or a different outlook, but trying to make life better for the people. And so then if you think of it that way, why wouldn't I have helped my successor be successful? And you know, to this day, I still have people tell me how remarkable they thought that was. And yet to me, it was such a small thing, but people say, no, it was remarkable to see you walking around the halls of the legislature with this Republican who you had nothing in common with, and introducing them to the leadership, introducing them to the power brokers, the people they needed to know, et cetera, and talking wonderfully about them, et cetera. And I said, well, you know, again, I thought it was my job. I didn't think it was a big deal. I still don't think it was a big deal. But sometimes when we do the right thing, people look on in awe, and that probably is less a reflection of what we're doing than the fact that the right thing doesn't get done often enough. So I would say your results are your brand. I would say, you know, finish strong, have confidence in yourself, have confidence in your ability to start the race and finish the race at the same pace. And I think you're going to be successful. So I'd like to do a little exercise. If you have something to write with and maybe a piece of paper, I'd like you to jot a few things down for me if you wouldn't mind. We're gonna see sort of if we're all on the same page on something. So the first thing I'd ask you to do is write down for me the 3 wealthiest people in the world. The 3 wealthiest people in the world. And then secondly, if you would write down for me the last 3 Heisman Trophy winners. And then finally, I'd like for you to write down for me the any 3 people that have won the Nobel or Pulitzer Prize. And then the very last is I'd like for you to write down for me name the last 3 World Series winners. So if you'll then sort of either turn the paper over or go to another side of the paper, and I'd like for you to write a different list of 4 things down. I'd like for you to write down for me 3 teachers or professors in your life who have aided your journey through school, that you remember them being instrumental in your journey through learning. And then if you'd write down the names of 3 friends who have helped you through a difficult time in your life. And then if you'd name for me 3 people who have taught you something worthwhile. Some of these may be repeats, but 3 people who have taught you something worthwhile. And then finally, if you'll write down for me 3 people who have made you feel special and appreciated. So for in this environment, it's impossible to have everybody chime in. So I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to guess that it was a real struggle for you, and maybe for most of you impossible for you to name the 3 wealthiest people in the world, the last 3 Heisman Trophy winners, the last, or any 3 Nobel or Pulitzer Prize winners, and the last 3 World Series winners, even though all of those are hugely prestigious, very powerful positions, certainly the wealthiest people in the world with leverage. And so, in other words, one would think that in this world with information coming at us constantly and at the tip of our fingertips, that we would know the answer to all of those. And yet I'm guessing it was a real struggle and maybe impossible for most of you. What certainly was for me. Then on the other list that we worked, I'm going to guess that you were able to list 3 people in each one of those categories with relative ease, much more quickly, without even maybe having to think very much about it. And I think the lesson to us, it certainly is the lesson that I've carried through my life, and I apply it to my personal brand, my leadership style, which is produce results, but always do it through relationships. Always do it through and with other people. It's not about who, it's about what. And if I don't need the credit, and if I want it to be a shared success, remember, people will support what they help to create. If people help you build something special and worthwhile, they will support it. They own it. They will have ownership in it, right? The old saying is nobody takes a rental car to the car wash. And there's a reason people don't take rental cars to car washes. They don't own them. Somebody else will take care of it. That also happens in leadership. It happens in human nature. When you're the guy that always takes care of it and no one else has to wash the car, no one else has to take care of it because they don't have a sense of ownership in it, you'll find it very difficult to have their support when you need it most. And it's a reminder to each of us that we really don't remember headliners and power brokers for very long. They fade from our memory pretty quickly, and it's because they don't affect our hearts and they don't have substantial substance in our lives. They're interesting, they're curious, they're entertaining, but they don't really matter. The other list is about people who are affecting our hearts, people who have had true substance and true weight in our lives. And they do matter. They have mattered. And apparently, for many of them, they still do matter. And they may indeed matter until the very last breath that you take. And that's a reminder to us that being an all-star, being someone who gets notoriety, a headliner, that's not always the long game. That's the short game. It may be the way you make a lot of money. It may be the way that you achieve 30 seconds of fame, but it's not, if you're in the change things and make things better business for people, whether you're running a company, a nonprofit, or leading a fraternity chapter of men, that game is the heart game. That's the personal relationship game. People who are doing what they say they will do are the people in our lives who we will remember. They show up, they're present, they're reliable, and if they tell us they're going to do something, they do it, they deliver. And that's an important lesson for all of us to remember when we're leading. Don't make promises you can't keep. Show up, be present, be truly present, not just physically, but be present. And do what you say you're going to do. Do your job. And you have the potential to be sadly, in so many areas of your life, you might be the most profound leader or change agent that organizations and people have ever met, because indeed it is rare. It is rare that people in leadership are truly focused on what and not immersed in who, the who being me. It's so much easier to lead when it's about we and it's about what. So I will end my comments there, and I will invite you to ask me questions and lean in a little bit on anything I've had to say, and then make this experience better for me.
I absolutely love that, Billy. Thank you for sharing that. Just like I did last night, I'm sitting here with chills just thinking about those lists of people that have actually made an impact directly on my life, and I hope that's the same for everybody here. Want to open this up for questions. So if you do have a question, feel free to type that into the chat. Let us know what's on your mind, what you want to know more about. Also, feel free to come directly off mute, and we can make this a fun and engaging conversation as well. But any question under the sun is out there and is playable. Billy, while we're waiting on some questions to come in, I have one for you as well. I think you mentioned those three people who made you feel special and appreciated. I know that's something that we can all take a moment to make someone feel special and make someone feel appreciated. I think sometimes the question is, how can I best do that? So for our chapter leaders who are on here tonight, what are some ways that they can make someone feel special, make someone feel appreciated as they round out their time in office?
Well, what I'm going to say is going to make people uncomfortable because it's decidedly not masculine. It's decidedly not the American definition of male, but you have to be vulnerable and you have to be willing to tell people how they really make you feel. And if you really need them, to be vulnerable through telling people, I really need your help. I'm going to need your help here. I can't do this without you. That's so like shitty, right? We, as American men, that we can't say to each other, I'm in need of your help. It's also pretty sad that we can't tell each other that we love each other when we appreciate the fact that we are in each other's lives consistently, time after time, showing up for each other without expecting or asking for anything in return. That is love. And that is the highest form of respect. And we so struggle as men to come out of our emotional isolation with other men and to tell men how they make us feel. And that can also be when people disappoint you. You know, I think that's legit, when instead of being passive aggressive and not being real with people, going to somebody and saying, look, when you did that, when you said that, when that happened, it hurt my feelings. It made me feel bad. It made me feel like you didn't have my back. You disappointed me. You hurt me. again, vulnerable things to say, but they're real. I mean, whether you say them or not is less relevant because I know you feel them. And it's okay to tell people. I've found in my life, people say, well, the thing I like about Billy is he always tells you exactly where he's at. And I've never had anybody say to me, gosh, you really make me uncomfortable when you're vulnerable around me, Billy. No, in fact, I get the opposite. I have people say, I want to thank you for telling me how you feel about me, good or bad. People genuinely appreciate honesty. And I think that vulnerability and that willingness to be real with people is a terrific leadership brand. It's hard. It's hard in America. It's less hard. I've traveled a lot in my life, thank God. But in other countries, it's easier. But in America, we've got some pretty weird ideas about what it means to be a man and be masculine. And sometimes you have to set that crap aside and just sort of, drop the veneer or the mask and just let people see the real you and hear what's on your heart and how you really feel. And I think you'll discover, like I have, that it's almost universally that people will embrace that and thank you for it and appreciate it, not the opposite.
I absolutely love that. So we've got a couple of questions coming in here. I'll open this one up. We've got a question from Matthew Smoker at Kansas Delta at Washburn. Matthew, do you want to come off mute and ask your question here?
Sure. So my question was, if I find myself doing too much of the work or taking on too much myself and not asking for help or not sharing that ownership, how can I improve on sharing that weight and getting more guys involved?
Well, first of all, I think you owe it to yourself to do that, right? If you want to be successful, you're not going to be successful doing it yourself. You're probably a lot like me, right? You think you have a lot of energy. You're a smart guy. You've worked really hard to get where you are, and you probably have a little voice inside of you that says, fuck it, I can do this myself, right? It takes longer to ask other people to help me than it does to just go and do it myself. In reality, that's a lie. It's not faster, and it's not as durable. You might be able to go build it yourself, but I'll tell you, the people that are quote unquote on your team will kick it back down. So you better be prepared, if you're going to do it that way, to build it and rebuild it and rebuild it and rebuild it, because it's never going to stand the test of time, whatever it is you do, because you're going to own it and they're not. And ownership creates a distinct, people protect what they own. People take care of and care for what they own. And you owe it to yourself too, because you want to be successful. And I think the best way to do that is to work the halls and match people's skills with the task. Make sure that when you ask people for help, and you should, make sure that you're asking somebody that you have a sense that their capacity and their skills match the task that you're trying to get achieved. So if I was to ask Ben Roethlisberger to play wide receiver, I'd probably be pretty disappointed, because Big Ben's he's a big guy, but he's not real fast and he's not real nimble, particularly at the age he is now. And so that would be a really stupid ask. I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to go ask Ben to go out for many passes, because he's not that would be a very poor match between his capacity and his skill set and between what it is we're asking him to accomplish. So one of the most important things leaders can do is try to figure out, okay, what needs to be done and who do I have on my team that's either really gets a lot of their mojo from that. They like that. They're that kind of stuff. They get off on it. It makes them happy, and or they've got the skills and the capacity and the talent to really get that done well. In other words, they'll probably be more likely to be successful than not, which of course in turn makes you look good. Delegation is a lost art. I just think it's too rare these days, that particularly in the fraternity. I mean, I think, we're all sort of A-type personalities now. We're all super successful. We go to colleges and universities where we had to have a 4.8 in order to get in and bring in 30 college credits. We're all successful people. and we're used to being in charge of stuff, and that's ego, and that can be a sort of a governor, a self-limiting behavior on yourself if you don't come out of that ego and figure out how to build a team that's going to be successful versus you. Because remember, it's not about you, it's about the team, and give everybody else the opportunity to own it too, because there's joy in ownership. Don't hog it up. Give everybody, it's a gift really when you're a leader to be able to say to people, hey, everybody wants to buy season tickets to a winner. I'm a winner, you're a winner, we're a winner, let's do this together.
Thank you.
Love that. We've got 2 more questions for you here, Billy, and then for everybody in the group, we'll turn this into some breakout sessions to break this down and digest it and put it to action for yourselves as well. We'll bounce over to Alex Hall at Alabama Beta. Alex, do you want to come off mute?
Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going?
I didn't know they had internet in Alabama. Sorry, couldn't resist.
Yeah, all good. My question, I think a lot of times, because we're actually the new exec for University of Alabama, but we just wanted to hop on, just kind of like pick your brain and hear your feedback. What do you think was the most challenging part? We're a pretty large chapter. We have 190 guys. So we just want to know, what do you think is probably the most challenging part of your time at NC State? And what did you do to combat kind of that large role?
Well, we had a large chapter too. We had 150 men in our chapter, which was pretty big, particularly big for our campus. So everybody else was around 100 or less for the most part. And of course, people have a really hard time dealing with having a boot up their ass. So they come up with rationalizations for why you're kicking it, right? So we became Sigma Phi everyone. The explanation that the other chapters gave for why we were so big is we'd give a bid to anybody. And in fact, that's not true. The reason that we were so big is because all the people that they wanted chose us instead. We could have been a 350-man chapter, but we didn't have room. And again, everybody wants to buy season tickets to a winner. So don't ever apologize for being big. It's a test of your relevance, and it shows that whatever it is you're selling on your campus, people are buying. That's a really strong position to be in. For us, the hardest thing with having 150 men, we were very focused on being a diverse chapter. Now we at NC State, it was 1985 through 90 when I was there. And in those days, African Americans joined African American fraternities and white guys joined, quote, white fraternities. And there was very little overlap. And the thought of someone gay being in a chapter, or for that matter, someone who's handicapped, or for that matter, someone who's an ROTC or a varsity athlete, these weren't fraternity men, right? So fraternity men were the guys that didn't wear socks with their shoes. And so it became a little bit of a stereotypical bullshit thing, right? We wanted our chapter to look like our campus, because that, to us, that's where you get the richness of the experience. We weren't doing it to be diverse. That's a fool's errand. To be diverse for the sake of being diverse is crazy. You do it for you. You do it for you. You do it because your experience, and I know that your chapter, by the way, I'm saying that on purpose, because I know your chapter has had some success on that on a campus where I suspect it's pretty rare. Yeah, and my guess is that there are probably some people in your Greek system that have had some fun at your expense because of it, and that's a good thing. There's certain things that you kind of want certain people to not like you for, or to resent you for, and so I'd say whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's working. Part of me, anytime I take over the leadership of any organization, I'm new as your grand president. So, the first thing I said to folks at Conclave is I'm just going to try not to screw it up. And that's not just me being humble, that's me being real. There's a part of me that thinks I can make things better and I can move the needle in the right direction, and I'm going to work my ass off to make that happen. But there's another part of me that says I have a responsibility to do no harm. I have a responsibility to make sure that I don't blow things up or tear things down unless they need to be torn down. So you're inheriting a chapter that's got some great momentum already. So don't screw it up. But I would also say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go wherever you think you need to go to make your experience better, right? So you should look in the mirror as a chapter and say, is this everything we hoped it would be? Is this everything that we expected from this experience? And if the answer is no, then somebody grab a pen and figure out what it is that we want from this experience or expected this from this experience that we're not getting. And then let's grind that shit out. Let's make that happen. Let's design for that, right? In everything we do, let's design for the outcomes that are going to provide the richness of the experience that we want from our fraternity, because we deserve it, right? If you're like me, I have a pretty high deserve level. Every time I do things, I say, well, when good things happen, I deserve it. I expect good things to happen to me. And the dirty secret is I'm willing to work hard for it. I don't just stand on a street corner and wait for a lottery ticket to blow by. I mean, you got to go buy it if you want to win it. You got to go play if you want to win. You've got to get in the game, and good things happen. So design for your own success. Figure out what it is your chapter's not providing for you that you want it to, and then design for a different outcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Love that. Billy, we'll take one more, and then we'll do a quick wrap up and break out into some breakout rooms here. Cole Gill from Florida Omicron. Are you around? And if you want to come off mute.
Yeah, I'm here. Basically, what I'm asking is, I've been in SIGEP for 5 semesters now, and every time elections roll around, we seem to get less and less guys, raising their hand to run for positions. So how do we go about, because I know that there's leaders, and it's kind of sad because I know there's future leaders all over the fraternity, older, younger than me, there's future leaders in there. So how did you go about, drawing out those leaders and finding your successors, and, if they're not directly coming to you?
Yeah, well, so Cole, the first thing I do is try to figure out what the problem is, right? We have to figure out what you may think you know what the problem is. If it persists, then that means you're probably wrong. So the first thing I do is try to figure out exactly what's driving that, because we can't design for a better outcome unless we know what the problem is. My guess is that a lot of what you're dealing with is bandwidth. So guys are busy, right? They're working, they've got their studies, they may have significant others in their life. They want to play sports, they want to do the kinds of things. Maybe they have things going on at home. All kinds of stuff interfere with our ability to commit substantial parts of our time and ourselves to something else. And so, the concept of, my guess, and I don't know this at all, but it in my chapter, when people that we wanted to run for an office didn't want to run, it was typically because someone would say, I just don't think I have the time. I just don't think I'll do a good job. I'm afraid it'll affect my grades or whatever. And the way that we got them to yes is to put our arms around them and say, we've got your back. If you run, we'll support you. We'll help you. You're not in this by yourself. We're all in this together, and we just need you to lead us. We don't need you to do all the work, right? We all want to drink the water, so we're all going to grab a shovel and dig, and that's the way that it works. If you want to drink the water, you got to be willing to dig the well. And the folks that lead our chapters are not the people that have to do all the work. That's not if you're elected vice president of programming, you're not elected vice president of dig the hole. You're elected as a guy who's going to dig the hole with everybody else, but all you're helping everybody do is know where to dig. Maybe what kind of shovels to use. You're the guy that's directing the symphony, but you're not playing any instruments necessarily. And so your guys might be struggling a little bit with bandwidth. And but at the end of the day, I just make sure that if you've got some guys in your chapter and you want them to step forward, try to commit to having their back, being their wingman, working hard to see that they're successful. You might find that people have a really hard time saying, well, with that kind of commitment, it's really hard for me to say no.
Gotcha, thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Well, Billy, we'll close out with one more here. There's a lot of things we've covered. There's a lot of good questions that have been asked tonight. Out of all the things here, if you had one question, what would it be?
If I had one, what?
If you had one thing from all the conversations, all the topics we've covered tonight to put to action, what would it be?
I'd say focus on results. Of all the things I said tonight, so I'm a results or bullshit guy. You know, it's one or the other. You're either producing results or you're producing bullshit. There's not a lot of in between. And the world's full of people producing bullshit. So don't be that guy. Just produce results. You know, if it's your job, if you signed up for it, if you got elected to it, produce. You know, grind. Be a grinder. I mean, make it happen. If you're competitive like I am, then results are how we keep score. You know, it's I mean, in business we keep score by how much money we're making, and golf we keep score by, you know, the putts we make, and in football we keep score with touchdowns. Well, in leadership we keep score by results. We just, you know, and there's an old saying that's what counted counts. So you have to decide what you want to count, what you want to measure, and that's the stuff that becomes important by default. You know, because I know the alternative's true. If we don't count it and we don't measure it, then it's not important. It can't be important if nobody's keeping track of it. So however we decide we want to keep score, and whatever we decide we want to track and monitor, those are the things that become important. And so I would just say focus on results. Don't try to knock a grand slam every time you're up at bat. If you've got some people on base, play small ball. Move them around the bases, bring them home. The key is to score runs. It's not the you know, to be a hero. The key is to bat runs in. And so be a team player, focus on achieving results. And I think you will leave office with people saying, you did one hell of a job.
Absolutely love that. Well, Billy, thank you for everything tonight. Thank you for taking the questions. Thank you for giving us your time and your wisdom and pouring into us as well. Whether it's the clap reaction or whether you feel like coming off mute and giving a round of applause, let's give a thank you to Billy here before we break out into our small groups. But Billy, thank you so much for everybody on the call.
It was a privilege to be with you tonight. Hopefully I said something that was meaningful for you. So keep up the good work. I'm damn proud to be a SIGA.